All right, hi everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your APS to join me. I'm Elizabeth Devine. I'm an app growth consultant at AppTweak, and AppTweak is exhibiting right around the corner. If any of this is of interest to you, please do come talk to us. We love to talk about App Store optimization. And really quickly before I get started, I just want to address the elephant in the room, which is I have a cane. I was in a car accident, so I'm going to be like standing and then sitting and then standing and then sitting. Hope it's not distracting. Yeah, let's get started. So you've probably seen a slide like this at a bunch of different presentations this week at MAU, any of the conferences that you're going to about app growth. What is App Store optimization? A lot of people think it starts and ends with keyword optimization, but that is not the case. It is any type of optimization that helps your app stand out in the marketplace using both the store themselves and the tools that they provide and outside insights that you can apply through logic. So in this talk, I'm going to talk specifically about what levers there are for you to mess with, what methods you can use for testing those levers, and what cycle you should be applying these testing methodologies to. Because, spoiler alert, ASO is a continuous cycle. You will never be done. Welcome to my world. Quick little bit about AppTweak. If you're curious, we are an App Store marketing platform and tool. We do a lot of a bunch of things really well. We also have managed services for people who have no idea where to begin. We can actually help you and run this stuff for you. So don't feel overwhelmed. We're here to help. And you don't have to take my word for it. These are some of our clients that have graciously allowed us to use their logos on this slide. A little bit about me, so you know I'm not just spewing nonsense. I've been working in ASO for over 8 years. I spent most of my time at a mobile games company called Super Free Games. They used to be called Super Lucky Casino. And if you want to know why I convinced our founders to change the name for ASO reasons, come see me after the talk and I would love to tell you that story. It's hilarious. So I used AppTweak as the ASO in-house person at Super Free. And after trying so many different tools that all promised something, I fell in love with AppTweak to the point where I had to leave that job to come work for them because I thought they were so powerful and cool. My personal favorite thing is competitor insights. I love snooping on competitors. It makes me feel super smart and powerful, and I highly recommend it. And in my spare time, I like to sew clothes, and I'm a professional wrestler. Another thing I can talk to you about later. So we're going to go over the different types of ASO. This is by no means like the comprehensive be-all, end-all list, but these are the 5 easiest to optimize things about App Store optimization, which is why we're going to be talking about them today. Keyword optimization is what most people think of when they think of ASO, mobile SEO. You hear that thrown around a lot. It is not the be-all, end-all of optimization. We've also got creative optimization, which is sometimes called conversion optimization. This is anything that has to do with the visual presence of your app in the App Store, and this is what helps you convert users to installers, players if you're in a gaming situation. There's also ranking and visibility optimization. This is one that I'm surprised to hear a lot of people do not consider part of ASO because it's shocking to me. But when you are trying to be featured on the App Store, when you are trying to rank for a top free or top paid app category, that is an optimization you are making to increase your visibility on the App Store. So it is absolutely ASO. Ratings and reviews optimization is another one that's sadly neglected at a lot of companies. It is really, really important to monitor your ratings and reviews, not only because it'll give you a lot of insight into your voice of customer, but also because it's something that the platforms actually look at. Your ratings and reviews need to be positive in order to be favored by their algorithms. And the last one is engagement optimization. This is re-engaging users that have lapsed, getting people to open your app. There are features within the App Store that will drive re-engagement with your app for people who have it installed and for those that have uninstalled it. So, when should you be optimizing for keywords? This is tricky because a lot of places, when they start their ASO journey, they think this has to be the first place they start. But if they're already getting a lot of organic impressions, they probably don't need to focus on getting more organic impressions. They should be focused on converting those users to installs. So when you want to increase your organic search impressions, when you want to start ranking higher for specific keywords that you've noticed are valuable for your app, that's when you do a keyword optimization. And you do that by identifying which keywords you're already ranking for and doing well with, which competitor keywords you might be interested in targeting, identify new keywords, and you can do this, with a tool like AppTweak. We've got a really handy little keyword sheet that I love to send to people. But you can also just do this with, type aheads. You can watch somebody on their phone actually go through the process of looking for an app in your space and see what their process is, what kind of words they're looking for. And then once you apply these changes, it's very important to support them with a little bit of marketing effort. I know that everybody's UA budgets are changing all of the time, but I cannot stress enough how helpful it is to run an ASA campaign on the keywords that you're targeting that you've just changed. It's a huge boost for you. You will see results organically and within the campaign. And then you do a pre-post analysis to see, okay, am I getting more organic search impressions? Where are those coming from? And the cycle will begin again. But if you're getting those impressions and you're just not getting downloads, if you're not converting users, the thing you should be looking at is creative optimization. Creative optimization can also be really useful for search impressions, especially if you're trying out a new icon on Google Play. It's like a little tiny mini ad for your app or game. It's the only visual thing that a user sees in the search results on Google Play, so it will have an impact there. But where you're going to see the biggest you're going to see the biggest measurable results in your explore or browse impressions, depending on which platform you're looking at, and you're going to see the biggest impact in your conversion rate. And this should also include your paid UA traffic. Both platforms have built-in A/B testing systems. They have their pros and cons. There are third-party apps that you can use as well, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the platform-provided ones. Look at the data, give them some time, try to see if you're getting more traction with one version over the other. And then when you are confident that you're going to see an improvement with one version, you just apply it. And again, you do that pre-test versus post-test change analysis. And hopefully, numbers go up. Ranking and visibility optimization is a little bit different. You can try to do this to increase your browse and explore impressions, but you may not see the install lift that you want from that if that's what you're doing. What this is really useful for is getting pretty shiny metrics to show your boss and your shareholders and things like that. When you want to be able to say, my app was in the top 10 for this category, you can actually manipulate that with install velocity, which means just driving a ton of traffic from all over the place at your App Store page all at once. And when you hit a certain number of installs per day and that's sustained, your rank's going to shoot up and you'll be able to say, yes, look at that. If you go onto your phone and you look up this type of app, we're looking at, e-commerce apps, we're looking at education apps, and your app is up there, that gives you and your company and your brand a ton of credibility. So this may not back out in terms of install ROI, but the value is there and it is tangible and it is measurable. Ratings and reviews optimization is another one I mentioned. It's very important because people look at reviews and they specifically look at negative reviews. It is shocking to me how few companies are actually automating review replies at this point, because as a user of an app, when I see a negative review and it's been there for weeks, and like here, 3,500 people found the negative review helpful, and less than 200 people found each of those positive reviews helpful. This is actual screenshot that I took last week on my phone for the X app, by the way. So this is very current stuff. So if you're replying to every single review you get, positive or negative, it shows your customer base that you are invested in them, that you care about their opinion, and it shows potential users that they're going to get really good customer support, even if it's automated. And Google and Apple both look at the reply rate for reviews as one of the metrics that they use to determine your placement within the algorithm. But they don't advertise that, but we know it's true. You want as high a rating as possible, and you want a lot of positive reviews and responses to negative reviews. When should you optimize for engagement? My personal opinion is all the time. But if you're going to be targeting specific moments within your life cycle, definitely look at when you've got a major update or a new feature to your app. This is especially important when you're trying to reintroduce people who have lapsed to your app after an overhaul. And then sometimes, you know, depending on your space, your industry, you might be running actual live ops content. So in games, that's often things like seasonal events, tournaments, special offers. And in apps, it could be anything from a specific partner that you're trying to feature, or a special deal or a subscription discount that you might want to surface to users. And these can convert new users. These are useful as an acquisition channel, but where you're going to see the most engagement is from existing users and lapsed users. So when you're on iOS, for example, and somebody has uninstalled your app, they will get a push notification through the App Store when you're running an event and they're back in the App Store, if it's concurrent, which will encourage them to check your app out again and maybe give it another chance. So if you're showing your new content off, there's a lot of little guidelines and best practices that the platforms recommend that you have to follow, and the approvals process can be a bit of a pain, but it is worth it because you will see great results, and because it's still a fairly new feature on both platforms, you can bet that the platforms are using this like completeness of having in-app events and promo content featured in your app as a metric for them to promote within their algorithm. So let's say you've done one of those things already and you're looking for the next step. This is the biggest oversimplification of the process imaginable, but basically it's a holistic cycle. It's a virtuous cycle. When you do a keyword optimization and it works, your impression rate goes up, but you're not likely to see as big an increase in your conversion rate. So then you go to the creative optimization, you get your conversion rate up. That's going to be great. It's going to make it easier for you to drive a lot of installs, so you need to send more traffic at it. Increase that velocity, increase your campaign spend, be very thoughtful about where you're spending it, of course, you know, don't go overboard, but you'll see a lovely organic lift when you've got the keyword and creative components of your store already optimized. And then it's a matter of retaining those users. And then back to finding new users. So these things will always need to be done. The App Store and the Google Play Store are not static. They are dynamic. They're constantly changing. I know at AppTweak we have a little internal Slack channel where when we notice they're testing a new UI on one of the platforms, we like send it out to everybody and we all open our test devices to see if we can get one of the weird variants. The platforms are always testing, so we should always be testing. And also your creatives can get stale. If you've had something that's top performing for 5 years, that's amazing, but you should still be validating that that's the best way forward for you all the time. If it continues for another 5 years, that's fabulous, but at least you'll have data on what not to do. And I sped through that because I wanted to have lots of time for Q&A. So let's do that. Yes.
Yeah, so on that last slide, it recommended that the keyword discovery sweep should be kind of audited every 6 to 8 months. Is there a similar recommendation for creative refreshes? Or is that kind of more?
I think it is at brand discretion. The thing about keywords is that we know that the platforms are refreshing things, and we tend to see movement in terms of like the strength of various keywords at about that rate. But with creatives, I would say if you can always have a creative test going, that's amazing. Totally do that. There are so many different pieces that you can optimize, and ideally you should be doing it in isolation so that you get the best sense of what is actually moving the lever. So you can make a ton of little incremental changes and just like stack those wins up.
Thank you.
Yes.
Like really 50-50.
Yeah.
Which kind of be, which they do incrementally with small changes, but it's something that they move a lot of metrics rather than doing massive changes. How would you look at like analyzing those results, and what would you conclude with?
So the question, let me make sure I've got it, is you're not seeing definitive results with smaller incremental changes. You're seeing results with bigger swings, bigger overhaul changes, and how do you measure the impact of things that don't reach their confidence level? Interesting. Part of me wonders like how you've set up the campaigns, like what percentage of traffic you're sending each of the different variations to. Is it an A/B test or an ABCD test? Can you 50-50 A/B? Ooh, and this is on iOS or Google Play? Okay.
Yeah, in our bigger market, we don't see any difference. I think that's because the brand intent is so high. And then in a smaller market, you might see like, we did see on iOS a difference, but on Android a difference.
Okay. A lot of that could have to do with just the duration of the test and how long these things are taking. The more traffic you drive to your app while you're testing it, the better, but you can't just, gimmick the organic traffic. You have to do other optimizations around it to increase organic traffic for iOS, for example. Google Play is really nice because it lets you mess with the confidence interval and the minimum detectable effect. When in doubt, you can switch all of that stuff to the shortest, what will give you the shortest duration possible. I think it's like 6.0% detectable effect and 90% confidence. That was what things were defaulted to before they made it an option to change things around. So anything before that iteration of Google Play, if you were trusting those like store experiments, you can trust these ones at that level as well. There's still like a 1 in 10 chance that the results aren't going to be the same. But what I would do, if you're not seeing something significant in terms of conversion rate, see if you can look at any other angle, any other data source for where you might be seeing results. Because it could be that this change is just not big enough to have an impact. It's not showing in that first impression when somebody lands on your store page. They're not scrolling to see it or whatever. It could be something like that. So that would, if you're specifically looking at conversion rates, I would say just try a different test a different placement, try a new icon if you haven't already. If it's a screenshot, especially if there's already a video present, sometimes just testing out different thumbnails for a video can have a huge impact. So it just might not be the biggest impact test for your product. But yeah, sometimes these things take forever. They just like run out of time without giving you definitive data. And that can be really frustrating. But when that happens, the best advice I can give is just try something different. And it's painful and it's annoying and it's kind of a non-answer, but it's really the best advice I can give. Anybody else? Yes.
Just confirming if I understood what you said right about replying to reviews, that actually impacts how well you can rank on a keyword. Is that right? And if so, could you share any specific examples that jump to mind of that happening?
It's less about ranking for specific keywords and more about increasing your organic visibility and viability within the algorithm. So, for example, I don't know what exactly the platforms call it, but internally we usually call it reply rate for reviews. And the higher your reply rate is, the more organic support you get. You're more likely to be boosted as like a baseline if you've got. I mean, there's like the explore and browse features, for example. So, you know, all of those little placements where it's like, you may like this app based on these apps. They're not going to show off your app if you've got a ton of negative reviews that nobody's paid attention to within your company. It's things like that that end up driving the impressions and the data. It's the algorithmically generated placements, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's the main app marketing strategy difference between Apple or?
The biggest app marketing difference between the App Store and Google Play? The marketing strategy difference. The App Store has Apple search ads. They've put a lot of their internal development efforts into the search ads platform, and they are really trying to get app developers to adopt and use that product. This can be really overwhelming, especially if you don't know where to focus your spend, but it can be really, really impactful. I'm actually learning about this a lot right now because AppTweak has an Apple Search Ads Manager product that a lot of our clients are finding helpful, but I didn't have a lot of experience with it before joining AppTweak. So it's really cool to see that when you make a specific adjustment to your keywords and then you run an Apple Search Ads campaign with that keyword and then you've got a custom product page targeted to that keyword, the story is just really clean. It's very cohesive and easy to understand, and a user who's looking for a specific keyword will see your app first and they'll see that it's focused on the wording of the keyword that they searched for example, or the imagery that corresponds with the thing that they're looking for, if it's a feature or if it's, you know, a free versus inexpensive access option, things like that. Google Play is very, very into their live ops surfacing right now. I would say that the number one thing we've seen drive organic browse traffic and explore traffic rather on Google Play is really impactful limited time events through promo content. They let you select whether everyone sees it or if a specific subset of users are seeing it. But we've noticed that when an app is doing at least 4 in a month, whether they're overlapping or sequential, they get a lot of explore and browse traffic and installs during that time frame. So that's a really powerful tool there. And if you're not utilizing their promos, you should definitely check that out. Yes.
So just on that, for in-app events, as an example on Android, I think currently it's quite limited in terms of how many categories have that available today. And so for the folks who don't have it available, are there other tactics, growth hacks that we can use to like communicate a lot of these goodnesses coming out of our app? Like maybe let's say every 3 weeks or so, we are putting out something really new and exciting. We do want to talk about it. We're able to do it on iOS, but not quite on Android. So curious if you've seen folks tackle that differently.
Sorry if I'm quiet. I'm trying to think of a good example. Don't just want to start talking for no reason. Yes. So one thing you can do is, it sounds like you say you have updates that are pushed every 3 weeks. Is that with a build or just in the back end? With a build. So that's one thing you're already doing really well. Update frequency is another one of those metrics that goes into the kind of holistic algorithm analysis for Google Play specifically. I don't have data on whether or not that's true for iOS, but at least on Google Play, they love having new updates. So when you're updating the build and you've got new content in the app, and there's that little section when you're pushing it live to say like what's new, think of that as marketing text. Everything should be very conversion focused. Include your CTAs, include your value props up front, and anything like bug fixes or holistic updates, whatever, you can push that down to the bottom. But that's a place where you can show that not only are you updating very frequently, you're showing potential users that you've got a lot of new content coming. Another thing that I can recommend is doing A/B testing specifically for those new features as your second screenshot, if you're vertical screenshots anyway. The first impression on Google Play, when you look at the phone, has one full length screenshot in vertical and then like part of one. So if you've got a really top performing like first screenshot that you're confident with, that second screenshot spot is where you can play around the most. And when you're rolling new things out and you're testing them out, you can see, okay, maybe they're not really responding to this particular feature, but they really liked that feature. Or maybe it's the way you're presenting them. So there are ways for you to show that stuff is going on, but yeah, it sucks that you're not able to use the event system. I think that would really help. Yes.
Comparing gaming apps versus non-gaming apps, are there things that you've seen that the industries could learn from each other when it comes to holistic app store marketing?
Absolutely. Coming from a gaming background and working with a lot of app clients, I was really intimidated by this when I joined AppTweak. I'm new there, by the way. I just started in June. And I thought this was going to be a scary learning curve, but there are so many things that game companies take for granted, especially casual game companies, that apps could apply. Things like big readable text at the top of your screenshots. If your screenshot's got the text at the bottom, nobody's going to scroll to see that. If it's not readable, like if you can't, on a device, hold your arm out and read it from this distance, your text is not big enough. And that goes for your app visuals too. Things that are very detailed can get very muddy. And when you're looking at the demographics of who is using each of the app stores, it's not all spring chickens. There are a lot of elderly power users and stuff. So readability is a good one. Also, highlighting specific secondary features is something that apps do not do as well as games in general. Games, when it comes to marketing them, sometimes the mini game is more marketable than the primary game. So you'll see a lot of ads for games that the gameplay is actually nothing like that. But if you install it, it's a mini game, but you have to play 10 levels to unlock it, stuff like that. Apps can be doing that too. And I'm not encouraging you to mislead anybody, but with custom store listings and custom product pages in particular, it'll give you a chance to see how your potential users who are searching for specific things often as well respond to those features. And, maybe you're a web-first company who's just starting to develop your app and invest in that or something. Stuff that works for your web campaigns might not also work, or like in the web store may not work in the app store. So, use the best practices of what you know, but then see if there is a different user behavior there, because the demographics will be different, the behaviors will be different, and certainly the size of the creatives will be different. Yes, sir.
So you went through the 5 sort of easiest ways to approach ASO. Would you say that those are equally weighted, or are there methods that are kind of essential where, let's just say App Store or Apple Search Ads if you do not do that with a brand new app, you're not going to succeed because you don't have the install velocity. Like, are there sort of dependencies for success where you must do this or else you will not get new users?
Let me see if I am understanding this correctly. So are there methods for success that don't involve using all of these together, or?
The question's more of, are there steps where if you do not take them, like, let's just say you focus on 4 out of the 5 and you don't do that fifth one,
Honestly, you'll probably be fine.
okay. So you don't see like Apple Search Ads being essential for a brand new app that has 0
I think it's extremely beneficial, especially at the front, not only for driving users, but for gaining data. Apple Search Ads gives you a lot of information about how many impressions each of your keywords are getting. It'll, if you use a non-exact campaign, it will expand the keywords it tries you out for, and you can learn a lot about new keywords. You can run brand defense if a competitor has noticed that you've popped up and they want to squash you and they've got a big budget. There's all sorts of reasons why I think Apple Search in particular is something that people with iOS apps should focus on. But for example, the ratings, like the ranks within the store, a lot of people consider that a vanity metric. And a lot of companies and a lot of bosses care about vanity metrics. So I try to present it because there are people who say, okay, Elizabeth, how many installs do I need to be in the top 5 for my app category? And I can look at the top 5 for the category, and I can look at their install estimates, and I can tell them, okay, you need this many installs a day. And then they can go back to their UA team and figure out, okay, what's that going to cost us? In my experience, the ROI never backs out as well as, a UA manager would hope. So it kind of fudges one metric to inflate another. But then being able to say that you're in the top 5 of your category could be a great way to attract new investors. So it's really situational. The things that I definitely think 100% of everybody should be optimizing is creatives and keywords. If you're doing nothing else, please God, try to optimize your creatives and your keywords. Yes. So kind of hearkening back to the games versus apps question, readability has made a huge impact on creatives. Things like color story as well. AppTweak's got this really neat feature where they give you sort of a market insight look as to what all of your competitors are doing within a specific category. And if literally everyone is using orange in their icon and in their logo, like, why would you want to use orange as well? Maybe purple will stand out better. And then that's an opportunity for you to A/B test several options and see, okay, is orange actually the trend because it's most impactful, or are we all just fighting to catch up to that number one biggest budget, massive corporation competitor, and we're all trying to emulate them? It's a fallacy, rather, that because your competitors are doing it, it's going to work for you. I recommend using competitor insights as inspiration to kind of bounce off of. But yeah, things like trying to follow trends without testing them, not so good. Things like you've noticed that there is a new keyword that describes your app. You're starting to get some traffic on it, and you want to think of ways to incorporate that new phrasing of messaging into your first screenshot so that the value proposition is very clear and people who are searching for that thing can see it. You can do that with product pages, but you can also just apply that kind of hypothesis to your main store listing, and you can learn a lot from that and hopefully get some incremental wins. How are we doing on time? Okay, I think I've got time for more questions if anybody's got them. Yes.
What's your experience been with clients who kind of dabble with a lot of different CPPs, custom product pages, versus folks who are largely just optimizing their main app store experience? Because that's something we're slowly starting to get into. We have different themes as well that we're trying to tailor, but just curious, are most still kind of focused on that and that's enough to move the needle, or do you see a lot of the needle movement when you start compounding through CPP?
I think CPPs are extremely powerful, especially right now, adoption of CPPs and being able to use them for specific keywords that you're spending on in ASA or through channels can be massive. Like, since I have a UA background and an ASO background on the client side, I can use an anecdote from the casino games I was working on. Depending on where you're running your traffic, the ads need to be optimized very differently, right? You know, if you're showing up within a network versus on Meta, TikTok, or ASA even, you don't necessarily want that to be the same every single time. But if you've got an ad that's killing it on one network and not getting any spend on another, you can tailor a CPP to that ad and run it just on that network and get that CVR lift that will increase your overall effectiveness in the campaign. That said, there can be diminishing returns, and you can A/B test CPPs as well, which we love, just by running different segments within your campaign that, like, all the setup data is exactly the same, but the actual link is different because the creative is different. And maybe you'll find a winner, maybe not, but across the board, we've seen more effective spend. All of our clients are talking about how this has really improved their UA efforts. And certainly with ASA, it's got like boundless potential, basically. I hope that answers. Thank you. Anybody else? Have I been too efficient? Oh, yes.
So I'm wondering about like in-app events, like I guess similar to some of the other questions about like absolute value, like, you know, how much effort is it? Like how much is this worth? You know, how much effort should we put in this? And then, like, you know, what is the potential upside? You know.
So the baseline of running an in-app event is very low effort. You don't even need to have an actual live ops feature within your app to like sell, basically. You can make something up. You can have your first install proposition, like, you know, the number of free credits you get towards whatever, the amount of time in the free trial, if you've got a subscription-based app. You can put that in an event and run it for everybody, and it'll be very prominently displayed on your App Store page. It's just another way to feature that value proposition. But also, the like creative constraints for in-app events is very different from store creatives. So they usually say don't include any text, but that means that when you've got the little text overlay, you're putting it in the actual event metadata, the name, the short description and stuff. You can use words that you're not allowed to use in screenshots in that text, including the word free. So you have to be careful that you're complying with the platform's actual like letter of the law, but you can get away with a lot. And so I guess what I'm saying is don't think I have to invest a ton in developing a live ops schedule to test events. That's just not true. Find a part of your app that you want to feature, run it as a limited time event. Usually there's like a catch-all for when something doesn't fall into the other categories neatly. It's like special events. That's the most popular event type, by the way. We have data on that because it is a catch-all and because it is low effort. And then just see how it impacts your metrics. If it does gangbusters for you, that's a clear sign to invest in the feature more. If it doesn't, maybe try a different value prop, because just including the event and having that on your page is going to give Apple or Google the sense that your app is complete, that you are optimizing it, that you're invested in it, and they will favor you in the algorithm. Do I have time for one more?
Just kind of following up on that, what
Yes.
is an example of like a feature event? Like if you had, aside like if you don't have a new product release, but you have something in your app that you want to test, what would that look like?
Sure. So one of the clients I work with is Chegg Study. They're a study and homework helper app. They also have a perks program where they work with other companies to give them discounted or like entry-level subscription access to those other features. So they have one for HBO Max with ads, they've got a DoorDash one, they've got a Tinder Gold one, things like that. So they've started using in-app events as a way to surface that. It's been there the whole time. It's been there for months at least, but not enough users are adopting this part of the app. And it's a good deal, you know? If you're a student and you're broke and you're already paying to get homework help, you might as well also take advantage of these other things, right? So they're just trying to use it to surface that information to their existing users and to new users to let them know they're getting more bang for their buck. So like that's one example that I think is really strong. Partnerships, seasonality is another big one, especially for like commerce apps. Anytime you can call attention to a global holiday, you can use that as an excuse to run an in-app event as well. Just like we want to wish you a very happy Eid or whatever. And you'll get traffic from that you can learn from. And I think that's all the time I've got. So thank you very much for listening and for your very thoughtful questions.